What's cracking, everybody? So, I'm gonna shake off the dust and do a video reply for my good friend Vocalbrush. What's up, mama? I haven't done a reply to you in a while. And this is such a great topic. Something that, sometimes you get those little gems in your head and you're throwing out there and you don't realize it's a little gem until it hits the floor and everybody's like, whoa, that's nice. So this is one of those little gems, apathy. This is something that runs through my head on a normal basis. And I'll start by saying I am not the greatest or the best activist in the world, on the planet. I've been criticized for speaking too much and not doing enough. Right? I think a lot of people can feel that. I've done my share. We all could do more, couldn't we? Or we wouldn't be in this position, right? But I digress. Apathy is something that just runs rampant in so much of what we do. And, you asked, was there a polarizing moment, a time in your life, or, what was it that pulled you out of that apathy? And, for a long time, I was always a kid, and through my whole life, just about. And I will say this was probably from like age 11, 12 on. I never had a problem saying what was on my mind. Never had a problem, I'd say what I mean and I'd mean what I say. And I just didn't have a problem with it. And I haven't up until this point in my life. Maybe to my detriment. Some people would believe that. Some people think that. But it's one of those things where I never really found my voice until later in life when it comes to how the world works, who runs what and how far it reaches, things like that, Talk about the rabbit hole. And I remember guys like George Carlin, back in high school, who I used to listen to. There's lots of guys, Bill Hicks and other individuals. Richard Pryor, and I'm mentioning comedians because I love to laugh, man. I love to laugh. And I love good comedy. But you can't, world leaders and speakers who were polarizing speakers in history in the United States and abroad were not the only individuals who had messages to deliver in that medium, in that paradigm, or on that platform, You look at guys like George Carlin, man. That guy delivered some very stark, serious, eye-opening messages through his comedy. He was very challenging in the 70s, a little tamer in the 80s. But I'll tell you what, in the 90s and up to his death, he was brutal, man. He got to be brutal at the end. Because he, the way I saw it, he was bitter and angry about all this shit. And he saw so much apathy in people that it disgusted him. And he couldn't contain it anymore. Like many of us. And I remember listening to him, and I'd always challenged to some degree and in many ways the status quo, and I never took things just for face value. There were a lot of things I did. I mean, Jack Lookfor talked about, learning what she learned in like history books and in school. And, there was plenty of that too. I think we all went through some of that. But I was into all kinds of different things and studied all kinds of different things and read all kinds of different things. And I was just an open book back in high school, in college. I was a sponge, man. The world was full of endless possibilities back then, and I wasn't starry-eyed. I was open. And, went through college and just, I think I remember, I mentioned, I had a video, I think I mentioned it was an atheist video, or when did you realize you were an atheist? And I think it was right around the age of 14. So it always challenged those kinds of things, religion and other things. But when it came to this, I had my ideas and I had a voice, but I didn't feel like I could exercise it properly. I didn't have the confidence, even though I was always a pretty confident person, pretty confident kid. I didn't sweat too much, and I wasn't worried about too much, and I wasn't scared of too much. So I never had a problem speaking my mind and saying what was on my mind, but I still felt, overshadowed by everyone else, by the majority. And I kind of floated for a long time after that. Floated through and just didn't really pay much attention, and into my late 20s and just took my eye off of things for a while. And then, like for many people, 9/11 was this polarizing event. It wasn't the only thing, but it was the spark under my ass that I needed to get back into that critical thinking mode. And it was still some time after before I really kick-started. And, the last 5 years primarily, I've been, an autodidactic, like many of us probably out there, like many of you, I imagine. And, but for the longest time, I mean, you talk about the rabbit hole, man. When I looked down, and I just, it was this big gaping dark hole. Speaking metaphorically now. But when I looked down and I thought, fuck are you scared of, man? Just jump. You'll be okay. And if you're not, oh well. But I think you'll be okay. So I did. And I kept falling, man. I kept falling. I mean, in the when I first really started to look into government and not just 9/11, but government and how things worked and who ran what and how far that shit reached and who was in bed with who and where the money went and all those things, man. I was ravenous, dude. I mean, I was just feeding myself. I was just shoving it in, shoving it in, shoving it in, shoving it in. I mean, I was a machine to the point where that's all I did. Researched and studied and read. YouTube was a source, and so many sources on the internet. And you know, the internet, it wasn't just that. It was everything. But it was a great, you know, eye opener. It was a great floodgate of information that just opened up to me. And I got a little obsessive, just in the fact that I was not within one particular thing, but just getting the information and learning and reading and you know, shaking off the fucking sleep and rubbing it out of my eyes. And holy fuck, did you know what? Check this shit out. You know what I'm talking about? That feeling. And you know, to the point where it got to be even somewhat, I don't know, I didn't think it was detrimental, but detrimental to friends and family. And I found my center. Eventually I found my center, like we all do probably. Like many of us have. I found my center. And I evolved. I looked into different things, and I looked at it from this angle, and oh, check that out now. So hold on. Then there's this. Let's not go too far down that path. Let's hold off a second. Let's look at this first. Wait a second. Now let's check this out. I started to round myself out. Because as all this information comes in, man, it hits you and you're like, holy fuck, holy fuck, holy fuck, holy fuck, holy fuck. But then you got to decipher it. And you got to filter it. Because there's a filter. You got to have a filter. You got to, it's hard. It's difficult sometimes to decipher the bullshit and the fluff and the pseudo truth and some of the information that's good information and not so good information. And so it's really hard. It's a learning process. It's an you know, you're ever learning. It's a continuous process of learning and filtering and evolving. And that's, you know, where I am now. And I've found my peace with a lot of it. But I still have my outrage for a lot of it. And that'll never change. It's hard, you know, because I think about my kids. And I think about what kind of world do I want to leave them with? Regardless of whether I can change it or make a huge difference or not. The difference I can make is to make sure that my children don't grow up glued to the TV and thinking like the mob mentality and accepting the status quo and all of these other things. And being fooled by the boob tube and fucking mainstream media and everything else. You know, I want my children to think for themselves. Maybe they're not going to get it right every time, and maybe they're not going to be on point or spot on. So fucking what? Let them think for themselves. Let them work it out. And I'll encourage that. And that goes for everybody else. You know? So yeah, that's kind of where I am right now. And that was probably the kickstart, the jumping point. And it still took me a little while to light that fire. But once it did, once I jumped in the hole, man, once I decided just to go for it again, once I really just took that free fall, it's been a hell of a ride. And I don't regret a minute of it. I don't regret a minute of it. So yeah, anyway, that's it. That's me. Thank you, dear Vocalbrush, for putting this topic out there. It was refreshing and gave me a chance, gave me a reason to vlog. I have lots of reasons to vlog. I'm just an apathetic bastard. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, respond, comment, whatever you'd like to do, and I'll catch you guys a little bit later. All right. Peace.